Agents of Atlas, the people behind the move.
Welcome back to Movified. I'm your host, Mark Hirschi, owner of Salmon's Moving and Storage, located in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia. And it is the Atlas Van Lines special presentation. This is speaking to the Atlas agents of Canada and learning what makes them tick, what makes their business tick, and why the unity and the relationship with Atlas Van Lines makes that such a benefit and a prosperous key within the organization. And today I'm thrilled to have a friend of mine, Magnus Olsen with Premier Van Lines. Magnus, welcome to Movified. How are you?
Thank you. Very well, Mark, and thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, for sure. So, Magnus, can we get a little bit of a brief history of yourself, what got you involved with Premier, and how working with, how long have you been with Atlas as well too? So I'll let you take the floor.
Well, I started the industry in 1987. I was going to Mount Royal in Calgary, and definitely as a student, you needed money, so I needed a part-time job to finish off the year. We had friends of the family who had an Atlas agency in Red Deer called McKean's Moving and Storage. So Jack called down to the owner, Paul Phone, and said, "Hey, I got a guy down there looking for some work on weekends and after hours." So that's how I got started. So I started doing office moves for them on weekends after hours, and then when the term ended, I was going to go back home, and they'd offered me a job, to work the summer, because of course, the summers are busy in the moving industry. And, at the time it was not bad money, really, moving for a student, it pays good money. So I stayed, and as, the summer ended, I was going back to school, and they asked if I wanted to, still stay part-time and come in and help their sales team on the commercial end. So I did that. So, and from there I went into, Paul offered me a job in operations, and I stayed with Paul for 21 years.
Wow.
For most of that was, at one time we were called Classic Moving. And then when we had an opportunity to join the Premier Van Lines, we did, because at the time we were the only independent van line agent in all of Calgary. Everybody else in Calgary was multi-branched.
Really?
So yeah, so that's how I got started with them, and then as we progressed on, I worked more with the Premier Group, and eventually left and became the VP of National Operations for Premier, and that lasted for a few years, and then I got involved in the ownership in Langley as well as Edmonton, and from there, we, myself and Chris Bone, who's Paul's son, we act as the managers of the Premier brand, the Premier franchise brand. So that's where we go. We got 12 locations across the country, as you know, and we're really, we're committed to service and quality, and being part of the Atlas Van Lines system, and working with other Atlas agents to provide service to our clients. That's what it's all about.
Well, 100%. Now, some people that be listening go, it sounds as though I'm hearing two van lines in the mix. You're part of an Atlas van line, but you're also called Premier Van Line. How does that work in relationship? Because there's a lot of moving companies, especially in the States, where they are like, something van line, right? ABC van line. And they are considered themselves as like a small van line, or that's just kind of the name they decide to go with. But you also are Premier Van Lines, but then associated with an Atlas as an Atlas agent. How did that come about?
Premier Van Lines, I guess when looking back, we probably should have been called Premier Moving and Storage or Premier Transfer or something. I kind of liken it as Atlas is kind of like, GM or Ford. They're the parent, and we're the dealers. Okay. So we, with inside of the Atlas brand, we have, 12 franchises that market under the same name, to provide basically, in the corporate area or with our clients, that they like to have the same name, origin and destination sometimes, and it was able for us to work together in a competitive market all under the same brand. So that's how it came about. But we're all Atlas agents. To be part of Premier Van Lines, you have to be an Atlas agent. So, Atlas basically governs, Atlas serves as a dispatch, accounting, quality service, type of structure over top of all of us, and joins all us Atlas agents, together. So that's, yeah, the name. Sometimes we wish we would have called ourselves Premier Moving and Storage or Transfer, for a little bit less confusion. But like you say, a lot of people call themselves van lines.
Right.
So that's where that is. I
Do
hope
you,
that
and
clears.
how, no, that's great. That's great. I really appreciate clearing that up. The idea of being part of Atlas, how did that come about?
We were all at one time. A lot of us either independents, agents, and then we joined under. We were all Atlas agents before we became Premier.
Oh,
So,
okay.
that's where that was. So, yeah. So we're all Atlas, and then like I say, we, for different reasons, some joined, formed the people who formed Premier. They were a group before that they wanted to, exercise some different philosophies, and so they left, and then some of us joined them afterwards, right? Because they were a
Gotcha.
really strong, good bunch of, good bunch of strong agents, and believed in the same thing.
How long have you been an Atlas agent?
Well, I've been an Atlas agent. Well, when I was with Classic, we were Atlas agents. So it's 87.
Before we ever started using a moving CRM, someone asked me, could you 10x what you're doing right now with the current systems and processes you have in place? And I said no. And so he was like, well, then you need to just pull the trigger on the software. And then I saw Smart Moving and it was game over.
Austin joined thousands of moving owners on Smart Moving in 2021. Since then, he's more than doubled his business.
And I always compare Smart Moving to Apple products. It's just so simple, so easy to use, and that's really what's allowed my team to scale and now have 2 branches. And last year we scaled Central Coast Moving over 50% growth.
If you're ready to turn your moving company into a machine that drives profit, not chaos, try Smart Moving.
If you're considering Snowball, just do it.
Snowball creates done-for-you referral programs for moving companies so you can turn happy customers into new revenue without lifting a finger. And the results speak for themselves.
In less than a year, we've collected over 2,000 referrals.
We generated over $200,000 of revenue that cost about $5,000 to do it.
I believe we had 4 or 5 the very first day.
The companies winning with Snowball are the ones that already care about their customers. We just help turn that into new business through human outreach and customer nurturing.
Snowball is part of the arsenal of tools that I recommend to my clients because it works.
Wow. Okay.
So,
And when you look back, being in the industry for so long, coming on almost 40 years, what would you say is like the top 3 things that you've noticed have drastically changed over the years?
I think the clients became more educated. Because sometimes you're getting second, third, possibly, geez, I'm getting old, 4th generation people that have used professional movers. But, their parents or grandparents were, a corporate move, so they moved, so they became educated. They have they do have the understanding of what has to happen. Technology, definitely, Mark, that's the biggest thing. Not in moving, we still haven't found anything where somebody can pick up a couch and move it to the, from A to B, but in all the other aspects of it, with your quoting, your marketing, your sales team, your availability to your client, in keeping the client more informed, and as well as all the background in technologies, definitely has changed. And I think also the type of furniture, the type of moving we're doing. At one time, people used to move a lot of different stuff. Now, they're more selective of it. The shipments are becoming a little smaller, and and the modes. I think used to always be a truck and a driver. That was the only type of moving you had. Now there's containerization, right? Which is becoming vastly probably going to be as a preferred way of doing it, because you can, it's more efficient, it's quicker, it's a lot of the times your shipment is the only one in that container, which people like. So I think containerization from the traditional, van operator and a trailer, has changed a little bit. We'll always need the driver and the one driver, the one truck, for moves. But in some of the other things too, and our drivers are getting older, and as in most industries, it's hard finding labor now. Right? There's not as much of people wanting to do. Like I like to say, you either make a living with your mind or your hands, right? And we're
Do you
finding
find that through the 80s and 90s it was just everybody was looking for a job, more of that, blue collar, hey, I'm going to go jump in a truck and do moving services or some type of delivery services, where it was a
yeah,
much more, not even so much desired, but it was easier to find help and labor as opposed
yeah.
to it is in the
I
last like 5-10 years.
I think so. When I was first started in the operations, we used to have stacks of applications, right? You know what I mean? People coming in because moving, traditionally it's always paid, I think, a little better, than, a lot of the other jobs out there, working in grocery stores or working in gas stations or things like that, right? But it's hard physical work. So a lot of people didn't
Sure.
like that. I grew up in Alberta, so we always had to compete against the oil industry, which was, kind of tough too, but a lot of people didn't want to be away from home. So yeah, it's really changed. Like the 80s, 90s, there used to be a lot of, you could, get hire people, and there was always a lot of availability to have people. Whereas, it changed, in the 2000s, right? That's really started to see a labor crunch. And, and we see it now. It came back a little bit, but yeah, people would rather, we don't have a lot of people wanting to do this job. And it pays good. It's an honest job. It's an honest work, right? But we just haven't done a great job of attracting people.
Right. And there's your dog agreeing with that. I find it's almost like there's a great hat that I picked up at an event where it says "Make moving great again." It's like that great slogan
Yeah.
that we hear down south, but um, it's one of those causes where people always have that premonition of going like, I don't want to be a mover. Like, I don't want it. This is not really for me. This is not where career path is. And through lots of conversations I've had with others, it's really it's an amazing opportunity, especially if you can get in with a company where you allow yourself to learn from being on the trucks to maybe getting into a sales position or maybe operations. Like, there's, depending on who you are as a person and where you can really thrive in, there's a position for you in the moving industry.
Definitely.
So to me, it's very diversified to allow anybody to grow when they have that opportunity. Magnus, being so long now as an Atlas agent, have you found that like, what are some of the benefits of why being part of Atlas has been so fundamental to the Premier brand?
Well, I think that, the first of all is the operational support, right? You know what I mean? You have essential dispatch that, can help the cross country moves so that your clients are getting, a van. All our drivers, our Atlas drivers, they're all and the driving fleets of Atlas van lines are all owned and operated by the agents, right? So, you've got it controlled by the agents. Some of them are dispatched by their own agencies. Some are dispatched by Atlas, depending whether, on if they're long haul or a short haul unit. So, definitely that's the one, the operational support to provide that service to your clients. Next there's the accounting function, the customer service function that, if there happens to be an issue, there's people at Atlas that are trained to, help our clients out and, to come to a reasonable settlement that, happy for everybody. And I think
Right.
that the network of the agents themselves, and you've seen it through some of the, the groups that you're involved in and I'm involved in, that just the sharing of ideas, the working together, and helping each other. A lot of the moves, sometimes there may be a special requirement for a move at destination or at origin, that you can work with that Atlas agent. Where, because if you're independent, you may not have that bond. As well as, for myself, Atlas has criteria and quality that you have to adhere to, so that everybody involved in it will, it has to be at a certain level, has to have the correct insurance, has to have correct WCB, everything such as that, which people may not think about, but unless something happens, right? It's all insured. Like when you're with a Van Lines company, right? It's all there as part of the requirement of being a Van Lines, right? So that's good. And
But
it's important.
in controversy, someone could turn around and say, "Well, that's fine, but I can have someone in my office build those types of systems and processes within my company, making sure that we have the WCB coverage. We are making sure quality is on top of it, and have that and stay as an independent moving company." So
Yes,
when they
but
look at Atlas, they think, okay, I want to make sure that like that seems fine, but how is Atlas really staying on top of Premier? Like, are they staying on top of their agents to make sure that quality is there?
yes, they are. There, there's monthly reports. If there's any infractions or anything that's below an agent, they contact you immediately. I guess the biggest thing is, and you're right, Mark, you can build your infrastructure yourself. Um, But the one thing is Atlas is almost like a third party, right? So they, can act as a go-between, right? Whereas if an independent and a client had an issue, well, it's one-on-one. With Atlas, you've got somebody that's sort of in a neutral, and we find that a lot. So that's where I feel that sometimes the Atlas stats or Vanline stats are probably have a little bit more criteria and a little bit more believable, because they're not done internally. And yourself, internally you can do whatever you want.
Sure.
With Atlas, there's nothing you can do. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. And that's the way they measure you, right? So you have an independent party, that's basically staying on top of Premier as well as any agents, right? And part of the Atlas system. And we spend a lot of time on the quality, and we spend a lot of time on trying to right now improve the customer experience, right? That's the big thing. Everybody provides a moving service. We want to provide a moving service that the client feels comfortable, that it's a good experience, and we take that less stress off of them, right? And that's what we're striving for before. So we're not just worried about getting the job done, right? Like a lot of companies are doing. We want to make sure that when the job's being done, that it's in a good experience for that client, that they'll come back to us again, but hey, that, that we did our job at a professional level. And I think that's the biggest thing is we're professional movers, and we can't lose sight of that. Right. So, it's an easy business.
You're right. And you're right. I think that's key. And I think that when you have, always, whenever someone asks me about Atlas, I always say, well, they're like the parent, and us as agents are like all the children, all the cousins, all the friends and neighbors, and someone has to keep us in control.
Mm-hmm.
And if the parents are making sure that quality is being taken care of, that things are taken care of, they're the ones that are dealing with if there's a claim, if there's an issue, like Magnus was saying, they are that third party that can be that good mediator than having someone in your office deal with it, right? So especially when you're moving long distance. And this happens a lot when I talk to independent movers, and this is always where my struggle was years ago, is if I have a shipment, so if I'm moving Mrs. Jones, and she's moving from Vancouver to Toronto, and now I've third partied out to a long distance carrier to deliver in Toronto, if Mrs. Jones phones me, am I able to track that shipment? Is there someone that can actually help me make sure that delivery is getting done? Is it actually going to get done on a proper time? Is there going to be damages? I don't know what kind of quality and service I'm really going to get with that long distance carrier that I chose. I'm hoping they're good, but am I really going to get that full service, especially when Mrs. Jones is calling and she's frantic to get her shipment delivered and wondering where the guys are?
Being found on the second page of Google is literally like having a billboard in the middle of the desert. Your mama ain't gonna see it. No one's gonna see it. You're on the second page of Google. No one's gonna call. No one's gonna book. Here is the deal. your business is not ranking on the top of Google, that means your competitors are going to be stealing your customers every single day. So at Rotate Digital, we don't play any guessing games. We use data-driven SEO strategies to make sure Google finds you first so that these Google searches turn into your customers, not your competitors' customers. How do we do it? We do it through AI-driven keyword optimization, exclusive blog networks, backlinking strategies, and honestly, the secret stuff, the proprietary lead attribution software. So what do you get as a result? You get not only good marketing, but now you get clarity into what is bringing you more revenue. So if that's something you want to do, you want to make sure your leads find you and not your competition, go ahead and go to rotatedigital.com, schedule a call, and we'll help you take your business to the top of Google.
When you actually have Atlas as a agent, or when you are an agent for a van line like Atlas, you have that assurance. You have the ability to call someone at the office and go, what's happening with this shipment? And they can pull everything up and they'll know within a couple hours of, if not shorter, what's happening. When's it being delivered? Where is it? And now with technology, especially too, and I bet you can attest to this, having things like the GPS trackers, having the ability with technology to, keep track of your shipments, keep track of where your guys are on the road, has definitely, been skyrocketed over the past couple of years as opposed to what it was back in the 90s.
Definitely. And that's where, and that's, a really good point is you have that support team. Yeah, you can call Atlas, you can call dispatch, you can call most of the drivers, now have cell phones, they have dash cams, we can do this, but we basically got a centralized dispatch that, that you can call in and find that out. And like you said, you're just not trying to get a hold of a driver dispatch who maybe operates on a cell phone. They don't really have an office or, brick or mortar building. So I think that's important that, and when they come to the costings, sometimes, the van lines, our overhead or our cost might be a little higher because our overhead to provide that quality service, that security. And I think a lot of things too, now is with Atlas too, is, with some of our contracts and the government, we have to have certain securities for, privacy of information, and that's all part of the van line system. I know, Mark, you recently went through it, right? And that's that's a cost to us, but still it provides our clients another level of service that, their identities and their information will not be sold, will not be passed on. And there's a protection. So I think as the world of technology, like you say, is good, but also, it's opened us up to some other, things that, devious people try to get into. So, we're putting that into play too, to protect them at all levels.
As you were growing your business, especially over the last 15 years, what were some fundamental pieces that you had to ensure that was going to make sure that you were working in alignment with Atlas, that you were working in alignment with the Premier brand, since it's a franchise model?
Sure.
Like, how did that, what were some of the main key points that you had to implement for success?
Well, that's what, definitely a quality service level was required by both Atlas and, Premier, where, training of your team, that sales, the front end, your guys, was one aspect of it. I think being involved, also, being involved with the van lines with Premier at the, different levels to, to have an input as well as to learn from, other people, in the van lines, and different things that from other agents, they try things, they let you, it helped you where they might have tried things that didn't work and they could let you know. So you didn't spend the time doing that, as well as, have a service failure. I think that was, a part of it. I think that the coordination with Atlas, as far as the drivers and as far as your moves, and Atlas has done quite a bit with training of your salespeople, and marketing and things like that. From the Premier point of view, what, is working together, getting, familiar, calling each other up, discussing things and coming together as a national program, was really important. I know when we went from Calgary, when we went from classic moving to premier van lines, our local market changed a little bit. We, from we got I guess a little higher type of quality of local move and other moves, because definitely, we were being searched, we were showing up in a different level. So all of a sudden the moves were, going from more executive homes from, just starter homes and things like that. Everyone's important, but we did notice that in going to premier, our market, changed a little bit into a higher end. So
Would you say that, for those that are listening and going, okay, well, I want to try and get to that higher ground. I want to get to that next level within my business. I'm finding that I'm attracting a lot of, you know, schmucks in a sense, but just really low quality employees that are hard to train. And I'm also just kind of always getting these bachelor 1-bedroom apartments. It's not really the big money makers, and I'm constantly lowballing that. If you either look at doing a rebrand or restructuring and saying, okay, let's raise our prices, let's focus on quality, let's focus on training, let's hire a more stronger caliber of employees, and the work will come. Because I think people get nervous, right? Oh, I'm going to raise my rates and I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that. But, from my understanding, when you went from having that company then over to Premier, that shift uh, resonated with you guys quite significantly, because you're like, oh, this actually shift was for the good. Like, this actually was much better because we're getting better moves, we're getting bigger moves, we're being marketed even better. With it within the area. Would you find that would be a good approach for those that are in the industry?
Well, definitely, because all of a sudden we got a national identity. We weren't just classic moving from Calgary. And
Right.
no matter, and we had a very good name. We did a very good business. We were very good bookers, but definitely we went from, classic Calgary into, Premier Van Lines Group. Right. And so all of a sudden, not much different than, going with Atlas, right? You know what I mean? It gives you that national exposure. Plus it gives you just that extra level that you have to, you must provide something for them to even include you, right? You
Right.
know what I mean? They just don't take anybody, right? Like so many organizations, that you have to have some type of quality service. You must be able to provide the service. You must have stability in your management, or else they wouldn't bother bringing you on, because why do they want the headaches? So that's it.
Being in this for almost 40 years, you must have seen it all. Can you share an experience that you had in the past where it was like, just, do you have like either a wild story, or do you have a story where you came out learning something new?
Yeah, well, I still learn every day. Like, I don't know if I've seen everything. I've seen a lot. There's a lot I wish I didn't see, but but I guess I think the different parts that I've been involved in. I know that when I was in Edmonton, we stored the Phantom of the Opera.
Oh,
So
wow.
so it was coming from, I think it was from Hawaii. So it came over in containers. So basically we had to, unload with about 36 containers into the warehouse, stack it and hold it, and things like that. It was quite interesting dealing with all those type of people too. So
Sure.
oh, sorry about that.
That's okay. We'll get those dogs edited out. Don't worry.
Sorry about that, Mark.
Oh, that's okay.
They have
I
fun
always,
when anybody comes by the office. They seem to
oh, for
like to.
sure.
They're very friendly, but they just like to talk.
But
Anyways,
no problem. It's good. It's like they've set the timer in
yeah.
place, so that's perfect.
But yeah,
You
no, that was interesting. I think also the many people I've met, right? The clients and the friendships we've developed with and the teams, and all the people involved in it with, like yourself with Atlas, with the different agents. things like that has been involved. Like I said, I was involved with CAM, which at one time, which you're, very heavily involved with right now. So you meet lots of people from different aspects, and you know what, like I say, moving's a good, honest business. There's no shortcuts. Like you've got to, manage it, and you make your money. And it's it's a good business, but it's a business you have to be tough. When you take people's goods, their possessions, and like I used to tell a lot of my crews and things like this, in less than 8 hours, you are loading up everything they own and driving off, and they don't even know you, right? For a lot of people, that's very traumatic. Right. You know what I mean? So you've got to, when you're in there, you got to understand that, if they're a little edgy, this and that, just, when you shut that door, they're hoping that you're going to be there at the other end. Right.
Sure.
So I think this is where, where you have that, with the van lines and that, the commitment to service and quality is important, and so I think the training of your teams, the skill of the job's important too, but that interpersonal relationship that they have with people is very important, and it's something that a lot of people have natural,
Right.
and some that you have to work with a little bit and do. So it's like I say, it's not too many jobs you take everything they own and leave. Like,
No,
so,
exactly.
you
And
know.
there's a huge sense of trust, and I love how we can finish off on that note, because we need to be the professionals. I always try and explain to the guys, we are in a customer care oriented business, and we have customers that are entrusting us with our goods, and we need to have a little bit of empathy and understanding and patience when moving customers, depending on all walks of life. And it's so important, and it's what makes moving so much fun. You get to meet new people every day. You get to move furniture that you would have never touched or seen, like the Phantom of the Opera sets that are coming into a warehouse. And that's what makes it exciting. And I think, to echo Magnus, being part of Premier Van Lines that is associated with Atlas and having that type of quality service is why you choose Premier, which is why you choose Atlas as a provider for your moving when you're moving long distance. And so I think that's great. Thank you so much, Magnus, for coming on the show and sharing with us a little bit about Premier and who you are. For all those that are looking to move, especially out of the Edmonton area, Premier has 12 locations and all across Canada, as well as you can check out Atlas Van Lines Canada. Just Google them up. And if you're looking for a provider in your area, Magnus, been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. Though. For all those that are listening, always shoot us a comment. Let us know. Have you worked with Atlas before? Are you part of an Atlas Van Line? Are you an agent for them? We would love to hear more about your stories and your experiences as well too. Share it in the comments. And for all those that are listening, stay movified.